Welcome to a special episode of the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Sencast and the managing director of B Squared. This special episode is part of a series to celebrate the award winners from the 2024 Nasen Awards. And in this episode, my guest is Karen McGuigan, who is highly commended in the Resource of the Year category. And this award was sponsored by BISA. Karen is the founder of Maths for Life, a program to teach maths for students with additional learning needs. And Karen is an educational consultant with a goal to improve the image and attainment levels for maths in everyone. The Nasen Awards, organised by Nasen, celebrate outstanding contributions to the educational support of children and young people with SEND. These annual awards recognise individuals, schools and organisations that demonstrate exceptional commitment to inclusive education and the advancement of SEND practices. And Nasen is a charitable organisation that supports children and young people with SEND, and Nasen's goals include influencing government policy, providing information training resources to support practitioners in schools, and contributing to the debate and affecting change to improve outcomes for children and young people. Now, let's get on with the podcast. In this week's show, Karen McGuigan is here to discuss her work and why she was highly commended in the Resource of the Year category. Maths for Life was shortlisted by judges for its innovative ability to enable students to build the foundations they need to understand mathematical concepts and empower educators to their students with confidence. There was no punctuation in that sentence. It was very long. Maths for Life has been used across the UK and around the world, and research has concluded that the programme improves mathematical independence, laying the foundations for further testing in schools. Their team now represents the SEND community, being their maths voice at industry roundtables on the future of the maths curriculum and providing evidence to government inquiries. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You are very, very welcome. So congratulations on being highly commended in the Resource of the Year category. And I always ask the question, what does this recognition mean to you?
It means a lot to me because it's Nasen. It represents the body that we are trying to deliver into. And it's the first kind of, industry tick box that we've made it. You know, the highly commended means a lot. It means a lot to say to people as well because Nasen is highly respected and it means that they have judged it, they have given it the seal of approval. But it is a gesture. What means more to us is what our students and customers say to us. Somebody did say, you're finally getting the recognition that we've been telling you deserve. So that's really nice as a feedback from our customers when we heard that we'd been awarded it, is they felt that it was justified. So that's good.
It is. That sort of thing is always that, oh, yeah, it's nice, but actually it's the schools and the customers and the students that it's really confirming that actually them choosing us makes sense and it reaffirms all the stuff we're doing. So, Maths for Life, slightly different to White Rose Maths.
Oh, controversial, straight in there. Slightly different to White Rose Maths. White Rose Maths, gonna put it out there, is very good in the mainstream arena. Yep. Never had any issues with it, even though I taught using it in lockdown. Got to know it was very familiar with it in lockdown. But Maths for Life is specifically targeted for those students for whom the national curriculum, timescale and structure is just unattainable. And obviously White Rose Maths follows the national curriculum. So we realised that there was a different pathway needed for a group of students. And if you think about it, students are in school being educated for 12 years. Having an output, no matter what pathway you take or what provider you take, but having an output at the end of that 12 years of not being adult ready to survive in the world is a shame. And it's something that I highlight quite often in saying, if we have students in school for 12 years, surely we have to get it right in that 12 years to make them leave with the maths that they need to survive in the world that we live in today. So Maths for Life provides for those students. It can be a great grounding for any other pathways. So it can be used as a starting point to leverage into what would be your GCSE. It could be a leverage into functional skills, but it is the starting point that embeds all of the foundations and builds on from there. Making sure there's no gaps, making sure that you're building on solid foundations and not on quicksand, which, to be fair, quite a lot of our children, when they get further up the education path, especially into key stage 3, there's an awful lot of wobbles, and most of those are because of the fact that some of the foundations were never there. So that's what we do. So we are different to white rose maths. White rose maths stays there. We do this bit. But again, if you're a teacher, a teaching assistant, a school, a Senko who are working with white rose maths but feel there are a group of students it's not serving, that's when Maths for Life picks up that kind of group of students.
So Maths for Life makes me think it's more, I'm going to say, practical, the maths you use in life. So is that kind of why it helps it grounding? Have I got the right idea?
Definitely. If you don't use the Maths for Life, we don't tend to teach it. So an example of that would be one of the key things I'm specifically looking at is the relevance in life. So do I use the missing angles of a triangle on a daily basis? No. So, but if I'm a plumber or a carpenter or in a profession where I'm going to need that, I'm going to need that, and I probably will use it on a daily basis. But the large majority of the population don't. However, on a daily basis, I might be deciding whether or not I have enough time at lunch to queue at the deli for my sandwich, or should I go to Marks and Spencer's next door? And to make that decision, I need an awful lot of maths. I need to look at the queue, understand all the numbers, my position in the queue, work out on average how long something takes to make. So, how long does the deli take to make an average sandwich? Time passing. Then I need to do a multiplication in my head, or a multiplication to work out how long that would be if I join the queue. How long am I going to wait? And then work out, have I got enough time? So the queue's 7 deep. I join it is in position 8. Average time to take a sandwich is 3 minutes, 21 minutes. I only have 30 minutes for my lunch, and that includes getting to the office and back. So maybe today I'm going to go to Marks and Spencer's, and the self-service queues a lot quicker. Those type of maths that we do, we as adults take for granted. And I don't, because I have a son with additional learning needs, and I know every step he's going to have to learn to be able to make that decision. And that's what is built from foundations right up to level 5 in the Maths for Life program. So at foundations, we build the building blocks, what is time passing, and at foundations, we're working out how long I'm going to be in that queue for.
My daughter made a mistake. I love maths as well. And my daughter made a mistake in primary at some point going, I don't get maths. What's the point of it? And that was like on a Friday. So Q, every single time we used maths in any form, me going, well, that's a bit of maths there. She hated it by the weekend and went, I get it. Maths is important. But it was like, oh, can we go get McDonald's? Or do I have enough money? Let's do some maths. Or have we got time? Is it the right time? Let's look at my watch. And I literally just pointed out every annoying thing to her that was maths, that she actually had to do some quick maths to work out. And she got maths. She now enjoys maths and she gets it. But it's like having, why am I doing it? I think there is a thing about the maths you kind of do in school is you do it because you're told to. The way it's delivered maybe is not actually linking it to what you're doing in the real world or where you would use this maths.
Yeah, it's quite abstract in the delivery of it. Whereas if you think about Maths for Life, everything we use shows you where it applies in life. So if you take the pure sense of the word in mathematical numerical understanding as being the teaching of maths, what we do is we apply it everywhere. So the students are led with the, where do I need this? What use is it? Visually there, showing you right from the beginning. And also it helps educators. I've always said Maths for Life is as much for the educators as it is for the students, because what we provide is a structure of understanding exactly where it's brought into life, exactly the examples that you can use to teach it, to make it relevant, because students need motivated. Yeah, I absolutely, my heart breaks for every student that leaves school going, yay, I don't need to use maths ever again in my life. And my heart breaks because they've completely misunderstood what maths is. And that is our, that is our current curriculum, which you said at the beginning, I've been party to discussions on. A year ago, White Rose Maths were party to that conversation, but Pearson had held a round table where all the who's who in the maths world were there to discuss the future curriculum for maths. And what was interesting was there was a consensus that it's the current GCSE curriculum is not fit for purpose, but nobody really could come to a consensus of what would be fit for purpose. And I think that's because of the fact that there's quite a breadth of life that we need maths for. And there is this concept of maths should be to enable us to go to this level and be the best engineer that we can be. But only a small subset of our students are ever going to be like that. And I think there needs to be an appreciation, and this is where my SEN hat comes on, and you will understand this as well, that we need to be more inclusive, but also not inclusive as in the tick box, let's be inclusive, but an equity that says, I want to maximize the potential of every student to gain the math skills that they need to maximize their output in life. And that is going to be different for every student. So I don't think we deliver for the breadth of students we need mathematically. So we're not financially educating our children. We are not data handling from a data handling perspective, which I can come up with. On most schemes of work, data handling is done on the last bit of the third term every year. What happens during that? School trips, sports days, you name it. And actually, we're not providing the skills that we need in today's world. So the curriculum, going back to that discussions, it's not fit for purpose, and we want to do something else. I'm not talking about a tiered system, but I'm talking about a pathway that delivers for those students who need the number skill and wider breadth of maths. So it's not all about numbers, but understanding in the real world to take into that future job. And it's looking at those students who potentially would get a grade 1 or a grade 2 at GCSE, where I wrote an article on maths GCSE helps you get a job, but does it help you do a job? And that kind of concept of, well, there are a group of students that would be much better placed not spending time working out the missing angles of a triangle, but much better helped to fill their capacity of learning with the bits that are actually going to be relevant to them.
Yes to everything you just said. Let's just say that. I remember when Rishi Sunak was talking about doing maths to 18 and extending. I'm going, no. Let's get the first bit right, because you talk about a group that you kind of are supporting with Maths for Life. And that's probably, I'm going to say, let's say 10, 20% in a school who maybe White Rose Maths doesn't work on. But the problem is, I think the percentage of children who go, yay, I never have to do maths again, is probably more like 50%, because they do not see that relevance. And I think all children need to understand the relevance and how they're going to use it on a kind of in real life. And there's things like, if I buy, let's go into like games. If I buy a game digitally, I might buy it for £40. If I buy it physically, I might buy it for 45. So therefore you might go, say the digital one's better, but you could resell the physical one. So it's not, most decisions we see in our lives aren't nice, simple, which number's higher that you get in your maths thing. It's actually, there's other stuff behind it, like buying a car. You haven't just thrown away £3,000 because you could resell it. So there's the whole budgeting and maths over time and things like that. And there's all these things are completely kind of either missed out, or it's the exact same maths, but done in a non, as you say, lifestyle way that you sit there and going, that's why I need that. And I think that for most children will make a really big difference.
So I'm going to come back to the Rishi Sunak comment first. Well, so I love quoting Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. So for me, that comment of staying to maths until 18 being compulsory for everyone, you kind of think it already is.
Sounds like a punishment.
Yeah, it is a punishment, but it already is. He's already punishing. If you fail a GCSE, you have to resit it to get your funding for your 16 to 18 course. So you have to resit it. You have to resit a GCSE and fail it a second time before you're allowed to move to functional skills, which you have to do. So to be perfectly honest, if you feel it's compulsory anyway, but this idea that we need to do something different, is really what Maths for Life is about. Because when when I wrote it, I tore up the curriculum and said, okay, I'm rewriting a curriculum that works, that makes sense for the world that we live in. And whenever I produced level 5, which is the final level of the Maths for Life program this summer. And when I was looking at it, it was like we'd already introduced the concept of money differently, looking very much at value. So we have at level 5 things like budgeting, looking at a pay slip, understanding deductions on a pay slip. And it's the financial education side, looking at value for money. And we have those questions. And it's really interesting how in my life I see it happening with my 12-year-old with Down syndrome. So you talk about the video games. He understands films. So he loves going to the cinema, but it's actually when it comes to the online film that happened in COVID, we've got the premiere. So he will say, oh, I want to watch this movie. And I'll go, check out the price. And he'll go, it's expensive and it's only to buy. How many times can we, to rent? How many times can we watch it? Once. Okay, so it's expensive and we can watch it once. Is that good value? No. Okay, keep watching. Then he'll come back to me and go, yeah, it's come down in price. Is it still to rent? Yes. So still only one, but you've seen it's come down in price. That's great. Then he'll go, we can buy it, rent and buy. And I said, buy it? How many times are we going to watch it? And he goes, lots. And I said, okay, so better option. Is it still expensive? And he went, yeah. Okay, so when it's buy and when it's cheap, we'll get it. And he keeps monitoring it. And then he'll come to us and go, absolutely, it's to buy and it's cheap. Excellent. Shall we buy it with your money? No, Daddy's money. Put his pin in.
But there's also it's expensive and we can buy it and we can watch it multiple times, and I will watch it multiple times. Or there is, it's a bargain and I can buy it, but am I realistically going to watch it? That's I have that. I have an app called Cheap Charts, which I use to track iTunes prices on films. And I go, that's nice and cheap. And I go, I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, it's then, are you dictating what you watch purely on price rather than what you actually want to watch? Because I'm of the opinion that if it's what I want to watch, then I'm allowed to pay for it because that's my choice, and I work very hard to do that. But you're absolutely right. There's the economies, and it for my 12-year-old who has Down syndrome. Whenever I describe that to a lot of people will go, my 12-year-old without any learning difficulties doesn't actually understand that concept. And I go, I know, but that's the difference between me as a parent and an educator, is going, but that's important for him, because when he wants to buy a film, when he's responsible for his own money, he's going to have to be making these decisions. And that comes from the ground up, and ironically, it's part of that reason that Maths for Life exists, is because Lance, when he moves into adulthood, his biggest risk is the carers taking care of him, taking advantage of him financially. We see it in the press all the time. It depresses me as a mom, because we as moms understand, and that may be very sexist because dads do it as well, but we think about what's going to happen when we're not there. I have 3 boys. I know that they're all going to be very capable individuals, but Lance needs protected. And the only way to protect him is to educate him financially.
Yep.
The issue is quite a lot of my SEND schools will say, well, we just need to get them time and money. And you go, you can't actually do time and money without all the underpinning skills. You just can't do it in a silo. You can't do that without. So what we kind of say to people is, you need the underpinning skills to start from, but then the pathway we take you on, you will be able to move further, and the pathway that we deliver. But it is all going back to this idea that Maths for Life started because I don't want Lance to be taken advantage of as an adult. And that was my motivation. And then literally going, I have to write an entire program of work to do. So when you asked me 6-7 years ago when I started this, did you imagine that you'd be talking to Dale on a podcast about? No, I literally decided that I needed to do something different for my son. The problem was that some other parents in the Down syndrome community found out what I was doing and told me to stop being so selfish and share it with the world. And that's actually how it all started. Peer pressure and the Down syndrome. So I have to thank the Down syndrome community, because without their backing initially, meaning that as in from being able to pilot stuff. I've had their support to the research, to the fact that some of the schools that are using it today is because a parent of a child with Down syndrome introduced it to them, and that's where we've grown. Obviously, have to dispel this rumor that is out there. Maths for Life is not just for children with Down syndrome. I go, oh, but by delivering it to children with Down syndrome and proving it works, I did take one of the most challenging marketplaces.
Yeah.
So if it works for them, chances are, and we have now done the research, the pilot last year, where we took a cross section of SEND children. And what was interesting is it wasn't handpicked. It was, there's the schools, you choose the students, and over 90% of them were pupil premium students. So we know that when we actually challenged ourselves in those schools to say, does this work, that we were targeting all of those lovely students who otherwise would never have come into the research element. Does that make sense? Because
Yep.
quite often when you're working with research, it's about the parents who will take them to Surrey University or any other university that you want to name, where they'll physically take them to do the research. And I've already said to research, when you do that, you're already handpicking and cherry picking, because it's the middle class affluent parents who are willing to take the children on a Saturday down to Surrey or wherever university to partake in this. You're not going to be getting the pupil premium children down there, because those parents
Can't.
are not accessible. So when we did the research, we were in the Oxfordshire pilot, we were very, very clear that we wanted every child to be included that they thought was appropriate, and that meant over 90% pupil premium, quite a lot of, I think it was about 50% EHCPs, but quite a lot of SEN registers. But we also included children who had no known diagnosis but just found maths difficult. So that was also a stream. So yeah, it's not just for children with Down syndrome. We're very inclusive in Maths for Life. And in fact, our audience now, our customers, whichever way you want to look at it, ranges from toddlers right up to 60s, because we've just taken on, there's a training provider in Northern Ireland who provides for adults with learning difficulties, and they have students that are in their 60s using it, which I think is amazing.
That is phenomenal.
Never too late to learn maths at all.
What I really heard at the beginning of that is basically you're just a very, 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 very dedicated parent, trying to make us all look bad for not creating a math scheme to help our one child know who needs it.
The other thing is creating a lovely commercial business that I can hand on to my other children to run whenever I'm not here. So creating jobs for the future.
Most of the people when I talk to on the podcast, either it's they have their own personal experience, or they're doing what they're doing. They started off as some water expert and they're now an education consultant because of their child or something. And they basically life changed. They went, I can do something. And so they did. And it's really nice that actually it's come from that passion. It's come from seeing the hole that it needs filling. And you can see, it's really obvious. We just need to do it this way because that we all can get it that way. And then creating that. And it's amazing to see the things that people create that they, as you said, you don't have that confidence in what you do. It's helping your son, but yeah. And then hearing from others, come on, please share it. This can help a lot of people. So it's not, you weren't going there, oh, I can make this and sell it for loads of money and be a megalomaniac. It was, I've created something, I'm quite happy. And then it's kind of growing organically from there, which is really nice because that's the kind of the way it's sustainable growth, but also it's not growing because you've got the most amazing marketing and you're lying to people type thing. I'm not saying all marketing is lying, but you know what I mean? Some people over promise, but actually your growth is through word of mouth, nearly all of it by the sounds of it.
Yeah, largely. And that's why the recognition is kind of key to us as well, because we are an organization that spends money when we have it, if that makes sense. So
Yep.
a lot of people think that we're backed by some investor. It's like, nope, that'd be me. We have got government grants. No, unfortunately, as a limited company, we are very limited in education as to what we can access. If you're in another business outside the education industry, you can get grants, but if you're in the education business, you can't get grants. So therefore, we've done it ourselves, and therefore that means that we joke and jest. But I remember making a button for one of my employees because she liked to go kerching every time we got an order. It's like the happy dance when you. So I made her a ka-ching button so that when an order came in, she was able to hit her button and go ka-ching, because it means a lot to us. So every customer genuinely means something to us. When we have things like the TES show where we go to it, and the first person to meet us on the Friday, we just released the video yesterday, actually, was Fiona from St Bonaventure Secondary School. She literally walked over and said, "Can I hug you?" I had no idea who she was, because remember, when I'd spoken to her, it's by email or it's by telephone, so I'd never physically seen her. And I was like, yes, but I need to know who you are first before we make physical contact. But it's endearing to know that you're changing the lives of students as well as the staff that are working with them, and to hear feedback from teaching assistants. One in particular always sticks in me. It's a quote that we use where at the start of last academic year, she was working with 4 students on an intervention group, and they started using Maths for Life. And she said at the start of the year, I asked them, and they said all 4 of them said they hated maths. Then we introduced Maths for Life, and after 9 months, she contacted me to say that every single one of them loves maths. Now it is their favourite lesson of the day, and other students are asking why can't they do the fun maths. And I just thought, oh, that's why I do what I do. That's what gets me up at 5 o'clock some mornings to to drive to wherever I need to go to, or to write during the summer. The last 3 summers, I've written 3 books while still being a mom. In fact, the first book I wrote was in lockdown while I was educating 3 children at home. So quite a lot that was early mornings and late nights. But you do it because you hear those stories. Commercially, I know fine rightly that our actual customers know that we are extremely value for money, and they will tell us that when they're renewing. But that's the motivation, is because every child, every student deserves the opportunity to love maths. And that's where my heart comes from, because I was that child who loved maths. I just got it. I used to absolutely love it. Then in my teenage years, completely denied that I liked maths, because it's not the done thing for a girl to like maths. No. And then I went on to do, I studied engineering. I loved applied. I loved understanding how things work. And I think maths needs to bring it back to the children. Our children deserve to be brought back to what maths truly is. And it's not about reciting times tables. And if you ask any adult what maths is, they immediately go times tables, and I go, oh God. It's like literally, and in fact, the whole element of Maths for Life says, but you don't need to recite any times table, because in life nobody shouts at me 6 times 7. Nobody shouts at me, or in fact, I don't need to do it at speed. And the reality is that you and I'm going to put us in the same generation, but we grew up with teachers telling us we needed to do everything longhand because we wouldn't be walking around with calculators in our back pockets. Yeah.
Yep.
We walk around with a supercomputer in our back pocket now, and I don't even need to write anything down, because I can ask Siri or Alexa or whoever AI you want to do all the math questions for me. But why aren't we not teaching understanding then? We're continuing to teach methodologies and longhand, and we're rewarding children for following by rote how to do things, because that's the way to do them properly. But what if I want to write my one up there and not below the line? Wrong. Really? Really? Is that what we've got to? Yeah.
Yes.
We are not that country. Yeah, I can say it out there. Culturally, we're a country that deserves to actually understand the maths of the true world. And that means talked about the value. We, on a daily basis, make decisions. And I've got a little antidote, but we all learned to borrow a 10, but we never gave it back. So the reason that our culture is so much in debt is because we all learned how to borrow a 10, but never gave it back. So in fact, I never borrowed anything. I just exchanged it. Yeah, does that make sense? See that one word?
Does.
Yeah, that one word. We borrowed a 10, but we never actually gave it back anywhere.
Never have to give things back.
No, so the next time somebody asks you to borrow a tenner.
Well, generally, can I borrow a tenner? Generally doesn't get paid back. We all know that. So that's never what's happened. But it's interesting. You said, I can imagine a kid going, can we do the fun maths? And the teacher going, no, we have to do this, and try not to say the word boring maths. No, we have to do this maths instead. Why? 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 Why?
Why? And that is what I would like to say I advocate in the maths world and the SEN world and at the government levels whenever I get a choice to actually speak up is I am happy to ask the question why. I am happy to do things different. I'm happy to say to, even today, I wrote an email back to a teacher saying, I give you permission to do it differently. We are bound by what Ofsted think and by legislation that says, but we have to teach this way. And I go, do you know what? Somewhere we went wrong because you don't. You
I don't.
absolutely don't.
I don't think it does say that.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't say you have to do it a certain way, but always bad news about anything travels fast, or fear about something travels fast. We always think Ofsted say this when they don't. And then you also have fashion things. We've had Singapore maths that went through. We're on the white maths rose bubble at the moment. And something else will come along, because to change maths, we just need to do something. We need to come up, give it a new name and do something same, which is roughly the same, but we do it differently because that way we're making a difference. But generally, we're not really changing anything. We're just, I don't know, doing it a slightly different way or changing the order we do things. And we're not fundamentally changing things. And the worst phrase I hate in education is it's the way it's always been done. It generally means I don't know. That's what it basically means. Why are you doing it this way? It's the way we've always done it. And the answer is I don't know. So why don't you know? Why aren't you? As you know from running a company, you don't just do things because someone told you. You try it and go, that doesn't work, and stop immediately and do something which works.
Yeah. So in a commercial world, you can't afford to continue doing something badly because when it doesn't work, you need to stop. And I think personally, we need to have, and I'm going to say this, but I know it could be misconstrued, but we need to take a bit more of a company attitude towards our education and realizing that this idea of one fits all in the education world, when we move into the commercial, like outside in the real world, it doesn't work. It's like we almost need to work in different companies and we need to have a different flavor for what our education is. And I have just been to the curriculum and assessment review with Professor Becky Francis, and I had the honour of actually physically meeting her, but she hosted the Southeast region one. And the one thing I took away from that was a disappointment because she started by saying it was an evolution, not a revolution. And I think we need a revolution. I think our children deserve a revolution. And do you know what? I think actually they're going to force it with their feet because attendance is getting harder and harder. It's much more of a challenge. But children are actually using the expression, why do I need to go to school to learn that when I can learn it on YouTube?
It's
And
not only the children who are using it, who are using their feet to voice, and we have attendance down, but staff absence is up.
Yep.
Staff retention down. Everyone is voting, but no one is listening. They're just saying, "Oh, they just need to suck it up." It's
well,
like,
yeah, but you know,
in a company, yeah, if your company starts being horrible to you, you don't suck it up. You go, "I'm going to do something else, something better." Yeah, we don't suck it up. It's what they are saying is this isn't working. Yeah, we're in the 21st century. What we're doing right now isn't working. Change it. This education is not for me.
yeah.
So why are we not making education for the current generation of children?
Yeah, and it's wide ranging because we need the breadth of it, but we also need depth. We need variety, but we also need specialism. But you can't have that all. You can't have it all for every student. So we need to do things differently, and students need to choose what they want to do as well. Now, one of those things that people always say to me, by looking at Maths for Life as an alternative pathway, are you not selecting children at an early age and saying, well, they're not going to be good enough to do the GCSE? And I go, I think you misinterpret what Maths for Life is about. I said it gives you the basis to go on to do anything. Yeah, you could go on to do a GCSE. Also, this idea of, well, I need to do my GCSE at 16. Why not at 25? You might be more suited to do it at 25. It's one of those things that you kind of, we keep putting ourselves in boxes, educational boxes. And I'm one of these people that you put me in a box, I'm breaking out because I grew up in an education system that wanted me in a box, and I was educated by nuns in Northern Ireland. So whenever I said at 14 I wanted to do engineering, they actually asked me the question in my careers class, why do you want to get all dirty and play with cars? Okay. Did you actually mean that?
That's mass mechanics. That's being a
Yeah.
mechanic. That's not
But that's
engineering.
what their view of me saying I wanted to do engineering was. Luckily, I have to say, I actually proactively took myself down to the local job centre, to the careers advice, and said, excuse me, I'd like to do engineering. Could you help me? And I did get through them on an insight into engineering course at Strathclyde University at 16. So I spent a week in all the engineering departments with a group of girls who it was an insight into engineering for females. It was absolutely fantastic, but it took me to do that. And that's the type of box that I'm talking about breaking out of. And for me, I think there needs to be more people in education who are prepared to do things differently. And there is an abundance of those out there. It's just, it's such a big ship. And even asking the question of, I think it's admirable, the curriculum and assessment review, what they're doing. And I think they've got a brilliant team. And Professor Becky Francis, I have got an awful lot of admiration for. But I did ask the question at the forum, so what's the time scale for implementation on this? Because you've got the review. What are we talking about? Because the last curriculum review and implementation by Michael Gove took between 5 and 8 years to fully implement, depending on which subject we're looking at. Wales have done a curriculum review. It took 8 years.
Yep.
Okay. So if we're talking about the same framework, if we're talking about the same time scale, realistically speaking, the Labour government need to get in for a second term for any of this review to be implemented. Her response was, again, it's evolution, not revolution, and the review will be published with a view to what can be implemented quickly. So not radical change, but what, and I summarised, she didn't use these words, but what I get from that is they're looking at the curriculum review as where is the low hanging fruit? What can we do that doesn't necessarily impact teacher training, money?
Well, that's why I get that as well. And also, I know it is got to be a minimum of, from when they announce it this year, it's got to be a minimum from when they announce it of 3 years, because you've got to get it in place. And then for maybe the year after is year 10s
Yeah.
for on that GCSE track. But
I don't think they're going to touch the GCSE. The GCSE is an 8-year program from start to finish.
I'm hoping they're going to change the assessment, the way they assess. That's the bit I'm really hoping. So content, I'd love them to reduce, but I'm hoping that we move away from solely exams.
That would be great. And also, I think the way in which they grade is, it doesn't matter whether you've got an A, B, C, or a 1, 2, 3 up to 9. Doesn't matter what you do. At the start of every year, or before you even sit an exam, 30% of them are destined to fail it because of the way they do it. So I think we need to have a slightly different marking system, or a slightly different assessment approach that actually looks at what you can do and not what you can't do. For me, it's a bit like the Ofsted grade. Let's move to a report card rather than word. Well, that makes a little bit more sense, but it doesn't really help the employer. And this is where we need to do an awful lot of education, is from the employer perspective. And Maths for Life we're building our own accreditation system at the moment, because we've got a full assessment process. And I keep getting asked, so are you going to align with functional skills, or are you going to align with GCSE? And I'm going to do neither. We're going to award Maths for Life accreditations. Why? Because one, we're a global company, so therefore we don't actually want to align ourselves with one specific country kind of curriculum and or process. But two, I'm not convinced that any of our current systems actually help employers understand what students can do, or further education. Like, for instance, to do animal care, you need to have this. And it's like, well, what do you actually need to do animal care from a maths perspective? Well, I can show you they can do all of that. Well, do they have the grade 4 at GCSE? No, because at grade 4 and GCSE you need to do this, this, and this, but that's not needed for animal care.
Yep.
So for me, it's we need to go through a process in this of looking at what we tell students, what that output looks like, because at the moment it's pretty negative, and why we're doing it. What's the purpose behind what these? Whenever I was at the curriculum review, people were very quick to say, but we just can't not do it. And I went, but in lockdown, And in COVID for 2 years, we didn't do assessments. Did the world fall over?
No, it didn't.
Apart from the mental health impact of children, which completely is aside, that was COVID. But if you just ask about the assessment process, my eldest didn't do his year 6 SATs. Has that impacted his education in any way, shape, or form? No.
But touching on that, academic, we stopped testing. Nothing fell apart. As you said, the mental health kind of did fall apart. But have we done anything about that? No, not really. Let's focus back on the assessment and the academic stuff. That's the bit we'll do. I'm going to wrap it up because I know you and me could rant about this for a very long time. And we were supposed to be talking about you, your company, and all the amazing things we do, but we're ranting. And we can record another podcast for that later on.
That's great. There's lots of content to rant about. But you're right. We should end on a positive. We're both doing things about it to change.
Yes. And that sort of thing that's what I like about being a small company. And you touched on it, that you are working with individuals. And I like the fact that the same as you're meeting people, or people are meeting the person who is changing their life. And I always love it when I jump on a support meeting or a training session, like, you're doing the training. It's like, yeah. I'm not. Yeah, because I like doing it and I get to meet the customers and I get to hear what you're saying. And it's the best part is meeting and finding out what customers want and what we're not doing quite right and how we can make things better. And also finding out the impact we are having. It's the best part is talking to those people.
Well, the best part is when you're at the British Down Syndrome Swimming Champions and Lance is there, my son, to take part in the novice competition. And these fan mums and children come up to you and go, "Oh my God, it's you!" So not just for me, but for me and Lance, because obviously Lance stars in quite a lot of my videos. And the actual organisers didn't know. They thought we were to be fair, we are mini celebrities in the Mask for Life world. But it was really interesting to see the effect on other people going, "Who are these people?"
You're looking her up going, she's not in I'm a Celebrity. No, she's not in.
Yeah, I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. You wouldn't want me on a reality show. You really, I think if I were to do one, the one that I would really love to do is Traitors. Yeah. But yeah, that for loads of different reasons. It's one that me and my eldest son watch at Christmas. We normally wait till they're all done and then we splurge on them. But it's one of those ones where I go, oh yeah, I could really get into that. So again, going back to what we talked about podcasts initially, there's just something about the kind of murder mystery, the traitor, that element of it that really, it works for my brain. Maybe it's the mathematical brain in me.
It's the active brain in you. It's the active brain in you. So thank you for coming on the show. I've absolutely loved it. And you'll find Karen's contact details in our show notes and a link to find out more about Mass for Life. So their website, Twitter, Facebook page, and so on. And as always, you'll find those show notes wherever you listen to the podcast or on the website, thesencast.com. So thank you for listening to the show. If you're listening to a platform that allows you to leave a review or give it a rating, then please do and let others know what you think. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, please message us on social media or send an email to hello@thesencast.com. The Nasen Awards, organised by Nasen, celebrate outstanding contributions to the education support of children and young people with SEND. And these annual awards recognise individual schools and organisations that demonstrate exceptional commitment to inclusive education and the advancement of SEND practices. And Nasen is a charitable organisation that supports children and young people with SEND. And Nasen's goals include influencing government policy, providing information, training and resources to support practitioners, and contributing to the debate and affecting change to improve outcomes for children and young people. And you'll find links in the show notes as well, so you can find out more about the work Nasen does, their CPD, and their events. So thank you for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of the Zencast. It is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Bye, everyone.